You're listening to the Light Novel Podcast. Visit us online at lightnovelpodcast.com. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Light Novel Podcast. Tonight, we are going to be talking about a rather lighthearted series after our slash squish discussion of Overlord. This one, Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World. Tonight, joining me to talk about this series, I have Flyz.
Please join the Axis cult.
I have Kyle.
Hola.
And I have Terrence.
Please join the Eris cult.
I can see where the war is about to begin anyway. Okay, so funny enough, there's not a ton of news to discuss tonight. We have 4 new licenses that Yenon just kind of dumped out of nowhere, and just one other little thing to talk about. I think the news cycle is kind of slowing down a little bit because we're coming up to some of the bigger conventions season starting, and I think they're starting to hold back some of their bigger announcements for that. That's my guess. I mean, if there's, of course, like a ton of stuff out there, like there's a couple of light novel series that are getting anime either this upcoming season or soon. So there's a whole bunch of PVs out for that. That's probably the other big news that you hear every single day, but we won't talk about that because you can Google that if you want. Okay, so first off, we'll leave the licenses for last. First off, the one little topic that we're going to discuss. My youth romantic comedy is wrong as I expected. The 14th volume is going to be the end of the series. It was scheduled to come out in November of 2018, then pushed back to March, and now has gone on an indefinite hiatus. I think Frog tweeted that she had heard it was something to do with the production side. Now, I don't know if that means production as in printing it or production as in the anime production that is coming out.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that it's been written, and I think the illustrations are done too. It's just whatever business dealings is holding it up.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me because, I mean, they had announced initially that volumes 13 and 14 were almost going to be back-to-back releases, right? Like volume 13, I think, was supposed to be out in October, and then 14 in November, and then what they bumped 13 to November, and then 14 was bumped to like March. I think like we were talking just really briefly, but they of course have announced that they're going to do a 3rd season of the light novels, and based on how many they did, the first 8 volumes, I think. First, is that correct? I'm trying to think.
I think the first 2 seasons covered 11 books.
Was it 11? I can't remember, honestly.
Because I've read the first 6, and that was just the first season. But like a lot of the books, they like skipped a bunch of chapters. Like I think in volume 4 and 5, they only covered like half of each of those books, and then just skipped everything else.
Okay. Well, I know they did omit a bunch of stuff, and I guess the anime was basically caught up. I guess there was a big gap between the stuff that the anime covered and now these more recent volumes. That's, I think. I'm trying, it's hard to remember. But anyway, let's put it this way. The stuff that's been left uncovered, certainly they could cover in the last season of the anime. And that is my guess. My guess is they are leaving the resolution of this series until closer to when the anime releases. That was probably, I bet, part of the somewhat lucrative deal for that 3rd season. That's my guess. Of course, I have no idea, but that's, it doesn't take much to put 2 and 2 together nowadays. And then other than that, we've just got like I said, these 4 licensing announcements that just dropped out of nowhere from Yenon. I was actually really surprised because Yenon doesn't do a lot of non-convention announcements. Like, it seems like they dribble the odd little thing out, but they dropped 4 light novels and I think, if I recall, 3 or 4 manga, all in just one day. Boom, here you go. Which is just, kind of odd. So, first off, we have one called A Mysterious Job called Oda Nobunaga. I won't even attempt the Japanese titles because, you can see those on our website or on the description down below because, now this one, it's probably notable because it's by the same author as I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 Years and Maxed Out My Level. So, from the author of hit series I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 Years comes A Mysterious Job called Oda Nobunaga. In this world, on the day they reach adulthood, everyone visits the temple to receive their life's calling. Many will become warriors or magic users, but when Arsrod, the frail younger brother of a minor feudal lord, goes in for his career, he comes out with Oda Nobunaga? Not only has no one ever heard of the job, but not a single person can figure out what it's even supposed to mean. When this young man inherits the experience, tactics, and prowess in war of the great Sengoku strategist Nobunaga, though, his very destiny will change. So this one, I looked it up. I think it's only 3 volumes long because the last volume came out in March of 2018, which is pretty long by light novel standards. So I don't think there's any more to this one. I think it's only 3 volumes.
Then it seems like a pretty safe license since it's such a short series. There's not a lot of risk with it.
Yeah, there's a few short licenses that I've seen get picked up. I'm just kind of curious, like, why are they choosing that? But, good sell.
I kind of think, I kind of wonder, and I mean, again, no inside information, but I kind of wonder when I see things like this dropping, I kind of wonder if this is like padding the library. You know what I mean? Like, the author, let's face it, I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 years, pretty popular from just, from what the feedback I get from users and from viewers of my site and stuff like that. It seems to be a popular title. So I'm kind of wondering if they've basically tried to pick this one up because A, it's a short one, and B, because of the being able to promote it by the same author. Although it sounds like it's going to have a completely different feel to it. And when I looked it up on Amazon JP, the Japanese Amazon site, to see how many volumes it was, man, there's hardly any user reviews, and the ones that are there are like 1 star, 1.5 stars. So I'm a little nervous about this one. Now, mind you, I absolutely loved Killing Slimes, and I think its first volume has like maybe 3 stars in all the reviews. So like really, you can't necessarily go by that, I guess. But anyway, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, though, I guess, how they figure this out, because it sounds like it's supposedly like a pure fantasy type series, but they're somehow incorporating Nobunaga into it. So anyway, next up. Suppose a kid from the last dungeon, Boonies, moved to a starter town. This one, Lloyd is a novice adventurer whose dream is to discover, quote, true strength in the capital he's always admired, despite growing up with neighbors who always considered him weak. The story starts with him departing his hometown, which just so happens to be located right next to one of the most dangerous dungeons in the world. Lloyd may think of himself as powerless, but when he goes to the city that serves as the starter town for adventurers, the difference between him and everyone else couldn't be any bigger. So far, there are 6 volumes for this one. The last one just came out in January of 2019, so as far as I know, this is still an ongoing series.
Yeah, I peeked into this one a little bit, and it has a overpowered main character child as a protagonist. The funny thing is that everyone from his village that he comes from is like super OP. It's like ridiculous. So his common sense is really out of whack, and it just lots of good comedy ensues.
Okay. So, yeah, all right. Okay, yeah. Well, it is kind of funny. So, yeah, so an OP main character, but then he doesn't think he's OP because he's used to all these other people that think he's a weakling. I guess that's the joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that one was requested on J Novel Club, and it had about 31 upvotes, which is, pretty good overall. So there are people interested in it.
All right. Well, I know I do know that it's hit the top 10 in Japan. Because I know that I have talked about this title at least a couple times in the past. So, yeah, so it's not too that one's not too shocking. But again, like I don't know that any of these are really like A-list titles necessarily. That's why I'm kind of thinking this is just Yen-On kind of keeping its name in the press because of all the other announcements from like Seven Seas, J Novel Club, and stuff like that. I think they're throwing out some of their lower tier titles to, hey guys, remember we publish lots of light novels, and they'll keep their big stuff for the conventions. That's my...
Yeah, they're probably going to announce all their big name series at like Otakon and Axe and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I think people said in the past they've gone to, there's a convention called like Sakuracon or something.
Sakuracon, yeah.
And I don't think they have a panel at that this year. Could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Well, maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe instead of going to the smaller ones, they're using social media to announce some of their smaller, quote unquote, smaller titles. And then they're going to do like, I think Flyz is right. Like the big ones are going to be like at Anime Expo and, maybe Otakon, they'll probably do one or two, but I think Anime Expo will be where the real big ones drop. That seemed to be what happened last year. So next up they've got World's Strongest Rear Guard, Labyrinth, Country, and Dungeons Seekers. After living life as a corporate lapdog, so this is an isekai, obviously, Arihito is reborn in a fantasy world. Strangely, the class he's assigned is the very ambiguously titled, quote, Rear Guard. It seems weird, but Arihito soon figures out that, though it isn't flashy, he's gained the ability to do just about everything in battle, from assisting attacking and defending to healing. As he begins his new life, he quickly gathers curious companions, his senior supervisor, who's younger than he is, a mysterious demi-human mercenary girl, and a gorgeous high-level swordswoman. With this bevy of interesting ladies in his party, his journey as the greatest supporter who's ever lived begins. 4 volumes released to date. The last one just came out February 2019, so this one's still an ongoing series. And again, I'm pretty sure I've talked about this one on the top 10 in Japan before as well. So a harem isekai, shocking.
Yay.
We don't have enough of those.
Yeah, there's this kind of odd trend with some of these isekais coming out now that it has their main characters in like these support roles, like healer, defender, and this one's got all of those kind of
wrapped up into one.
Trend we're seeing, yeah.
Well, I kind of wonder if, you know what, you're right. I kind of wonder if it's in tandem with that whole trend that we're seeing of the whole worked literally to death in our world, and so reborn as a chill, relaxing life into another world. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like characters, it seems to be this trend now where it's like we've had all these characters put into isekais where they are the focal character, front and center, the hero, and now it seems like you said, like this trend seems to be coming where it's like no, I just want to kind of lean back and relax, and I don't want to be noticed, and I'm just back here protecting your butt, that's all. I'm not the hero. I don't know what that's all about. So I don't know. I mean, it's, I don't know. Do you think it's some kind of cultural thing? I mean, I don't know enough about Japan right now to know, but
Well, I think it makes sense nowadays since like the whole culture of the country right now. Like, has anyone seen the new article that just came out today from Frogcoon about some employee at Studio Madhouse was worked so hard that they had to be hospitalized, and then they're pretty much like suing the company to pay him because he was unpaid during the time.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear about the lawsuit.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I didn't read the whole article. I saw like the byline and the little blurb about it, but yeah, well, I mean, you know, and actually I saw a follow-up tweet from Frog where she was saying, you know, it seems every week I'm having to write about an article about the horrible conditions and underpay and everything else in the anime industry. So yeah, I mean, you know what? You're right, Flyz. It could be. Well, I think it's kind of just I think it's just kind of a reaction to the whole situation, right? Like, yes, that's prevalent in anime, but I mean, a lot of these main characters are all like salary men, salary women, like company workers. Like, I think it's just, I think it's kind of pushing back on that whole corporate structure and the whole idea that corporations will work you to death and not even care. You know what I mean?
There was one video game publisher. I want to say it was Sakurai, who said that he took an IV, like to be able to keep working one day.
Oh,
when he was sick. Like he took an IV and then came into work.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, that he was being like fed intravenously and stuff to stay hydrated and stuff so that he could like keep working. Yeah, like. That's crazy, man. That is crazy. And I mean, you know what? It's one thing. Okay. And I'll put this out there. It is one thing if you are so in love with your art or whatever it is you do that you push yourself, like because of yourself to do things. It's a whole other thing if your corporate overlord is saying that you need to do that. You know what I mean? Like
it's not just that like they're working themselves so hard to the point that they're becoming hospitalized. It's also on top of that they're doing it without being paid. That's almost just as messed up.
Well, you know what? I mean, there is, I think sometimes that we have a bit of a different perception of the anime situation in Japan. Like, I mean, we've had a bunch of stories come out recently about studios having to file bankruptcy, going under and stuff like that. Like, I think we have this perception here because there's so much merchandise and everything else. And, you know, you've got the Crunchyrolls, the Hulus, the Amazons, the Netflix, the High Dives, and all, you know, Funimation and all these companies pumping out anime, making money off anime that, you know, even the publishers, right? Manga publishers, light novel publishers. I think we have a perception that like anime must make hordes of money for the people who create it, and that just doesn't really seem to be true. Like, I know that there seems to be like a big, like they've changed it a lot, right? Like there's a big, like it's business consortiums basically that get anime made.
It's the production company like Katakawa, which makes the majority of the money. And basically what they do is that they basically they pick a studio and they give them like an allowance and they say adapt this show. You'll have this time slot and you'll have this many episodes to adapt it. So they'll give them like a budget. So like every show has about around the same budget. Back in like 2015, everyone, when like One Punch Man first came out, everyone was like watching and they're like, oh my god, the animation, it's so amazing. They must have a huge budget for this show. But then it's later revealed that it just has an average budget like every other show, and it was just the passion of the animators that made it look so good. It's just that in certain situations, like, the production company just doesn't give the studio and the animators and the directors enough of, like, a leeway, and they pretty much force them to adapt up to a certain point in the story where, like, things get completely rushed or you have to skip a bunch of things. Like, that's what happened with the third season of Index that just finished, and that's another thing of news we could talk about.
Yeah,
because,
I was just actually when you
about
started
to
talking
segue.
about that, yes, I was.
Yeah,
The director,
the director
of season 3 of Index quitting social media because of all the hate that he got about the production values on season 3. Yeah, and again, like you're saying, is the director's trying to make the best of what he can with what he has. It seems so easy to target a person, but people seem to fail to realize that it's mostly the corporations that are insisting on these things, right?
Yeah, like with the Index situation, I kind of don't want to pick sides until there's more news out, because from what I hear, the director, I don't know what his name's slipping my mind, but apparently he's also kind of hard to work with and just kind of does his own thing. And I think Kamachi, I think he left the production of season 3 after 3 weeks because he couldn't get him to agree to do things the way he asked. So I think he jumped ship 3 weeks into season 3.
Well, but I mean, it sounds like the whole Index season 3 thing was a bit of a snafu anyway, right? Because wasn't that the one we were talking about that initially they were thinking about just restarting the series because it had been so long since the first season, and then they were like, well, no, the fans will lose their minds. So halfway basically through the production cycle, they're basically changing gears and going to do 3 instead. If I recall, we talked about that a while back, didn't we?
Yeah, from what I know, they first were
definitely.
gonna just skip the rest of Old Testament and just skip right to New Testament, and then fans got pissed at that, so then they were gonna just cut out a few arcs, but then they ended up just doing all 9 books instead. They were gonna cut out most of the Accelerator focused arcs.
Well, and see, they're doing an Accelerator anime, so I don't really understand if you were going to. I don't know. I think that there is definitely. No, I mean, again, this is my guessing, right? This is just me on the outside looking in. But I kind of have to think it's got to be tough to be stuck in the middle of the fans who want this, the companies who want this, the creator who's hoping, because let's face it, most creators have absolutely zero control over what gets done with their stuff once they sign the check, once they get the check in their bank. There's a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different demands. And, to me, it would have been really easy to, if you were going to do an Accelerator anime, why wouldn't you just say, hey, you know what, there's some Accelerator focused stuff in these last remaining Index novels. How about we do that in the Accelerator anime, so then we can give the fans all the arcs, but yet split it amongst different, productions?
Well, the Accelerator anime
it's
adapts
based on the manga,
Accelerator
right?
manga, which takes place right after Volume 5, so the timeline is all the way back near the end of where Index Season 1 was. So you'd still miss out on a whole bunch. So,
well, but I kind of wonder, well, I don't know if you're a massive Index fan. I know some of you guys are, but even to people listening, what would you rather see? Would you rather see the Accelerator stuff from the novels adapted really faithfully, or is the manga more important? I don't know. I haven't read any of it, so.
Well, when the season first got announced, I was kind of hoping they would just adapt 6 books like they did with season 1, and then that would just leave the World War III arc, which everyone was super hyped about, and they could do a movie series like they've been doing for Heaven's Feel or all these other series. But but this whole talk with studios and stuff could be its very own podcast, pretty much, because it's so much. There's so much stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost felt that there could have been a 4th series that just covers all of Hamazura's stuff, because he almost doesn't factor in with Toma and the main draw of the series at all. in the original series. So it's like you could almost push him to the side, give him his own OVA series or stuff, just so that, you know, season 3 could have had the episodes it needed to cover the important stuff. And instead we just got a jumbled mess where they're just trying to cram in as much as possible, and it did not work out at all.
It's like both audiences don't win, because you have light novel fans who get a jumbled rush of an anime, and then you have anime-only fans who can't follow anything going on because it's so rushed.
Yeah, no, that is true. And I kind of think that's where I kind of wonder if that is part of the problem that we're starting to see. And I still have like a fourth. We've gone off on a real tangent, but whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares? It's worth talking about for 5 minutes or 5 hours, you know, whatever. But just like really briefly, that is one thing that I think we have talked about before, how things have really changed in terms of adaptation of existing work from, you know, 10, 15 years ago. Like in the anime, like you take a look at the anime from the 90s that adapted light novels. They didn't give a crap what the light novel content was, right? Like they were basically like, okay, it's a cool story. Here's a couple cool elements that we want to do, but otherwise we're just going to tell a story that will satisfy anime fans, because they didn't really, there wasn't like that same intrinsic connection that, oh, we have to hype up the light novel. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of wonder if the light novel companies have become really more heavily invested in these anime as vehicles to drive sales of light novels. And that's why we're seeing this change in recent years, where it's like the company seems more preoccupied in jamming in light novel material as opposed to, hey, how about we just make a really amazing anime using this idea? You know, like
how the original Boogie Pop.
Well, yeah, original Boogie Pop had like jack crap to do with the light novels. Like it was actually a whole original story, and the only things that they did from the actual light novels was just some flashback sequences, right? Like it was basically its own separate entity that had nothing to do with the light novels. Which, you know what? I mean, in some ways, like you said, I mean, I would almost rather that, like it be almost like a supplemental story that as a fan I can enjoy, than to watch an adaptation that is rushed and cut and jammed and everything else, right? Like, I don't know what the philosophy was or why it changed. I honestly think it's just that companies recognize that, holy crap, we're selling a lot more books when we put the anime out, so let's focus on that as like a marketing machine as opposed to doing anime for the sake of anime. That's my guess.
Plus, when you think about it, they'd sell more books too if they just did their own story, because like, how many times have you seen like an anime come out and people are a fan of it and they're like, oh, what's the book that it leaves off of? So I could start from there. But if you do your own story, then you'll get more people to just start from volume 1, which means more books to sell.
You would think so, right? But I mean, they're like, even I always come back to it because it always makes me laugh, is like, because it's such a perfect example. Like when Re:Zero was so popular as the anime, when volume 10 came out, they actually in Japan advertised it as the continuation of the anime. Like I saw pictures, people were posting it on Twitter. They're like, check it out, billboards in Japan that were like, loved Re:Zero anime, read the continuation, Re:Zero volume 10. So yeah, I think you're right, Flyz. Like, I think that's a very different way of looking at how to use anime to promote light novels, which would probably be more satisfying to both light novel fans and, you know, to the anime fans. But I don't know. You know what, people listening, how do you feel as a light novel fan? Would you rather see anime do something original and different with a property, and, you know, not necessarily adapt it verbatim, or do you want to see it adapted? I don't know. I mean, given how some people I have seen react to like film adaptations of books and stuff, I kind of think we've created our own monster. Like, in some ways, I think fandom, we've created our own issue by insisting that we want the films and the movies and the TV shows and everything to be faithful adaptations. And sometimes it just doesn't work. You know, one medium is better left to do its own thing. So anyway, with that said, you know, that went on for way bigger, suddenly a tangent than I thought it would, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah, isn't there still one more announcement?
Yeah, whatever when I said there wouldn't be 40 minutes
there's still
of
one more
preview.
announcement. Well, you know what? Whatever. I mean, we usually spend about 40 minutes on the news because I usually have like 20 different things to talk about. So today we just had a discussion, so it's all good. The last one that that Yenon said was, the greatest Mahō is reborn to get friends. The greatest demon lord in all of history, Varvatos, has reigned for several millennia as absolute ruler. Now there's only one thing left for him to do: enjoy the life of an average commoner. When he's reincarnated as a villager in a nondescript town, everything seems to be going as he hoped. But there's just one slight problem. Even when he holds back, Varvatos is still too strong. Soon, rumors about him spread, and he's approached by all sorts of men, women, and assailants. The quiet life he's always dreamed of seems far away indeed. This one, it's got 4 volumes. By the time this podcast goes live, it'll have had 4 volumes. The 4th volume's coming out in April, just in about a week from when we're recording this. So it's an ongoing series, obviously, in Japan. And funny enough, ties right into the conversation that led us on that long tangent about another in the long series of taking a character and making him try to pretend like he's nothing and putting him in the back and leading an average life and yada, yada, yada. So there you go, Kyle. It's another one that's just proving your point. It seems to be becoming a bigger trend in light novels. So
yep, another one of those.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, like, when I'm reading it, I mean, it's not an isekai per se, obviously, but it reminded me when I read the thing the first time, I was like, it sounds exactly like I've been killing slimes, except instead of the gradual increase, it's the same thing, right? OP character just wants to, like, chill, have nobody know, and then their secret gets out and a whole bunch of people show up at their doorstep and it just gets out of control. Like, it sounds like a very similar setup. I think that's going to become a increasing theme in the light novel scene because it seems to be coming up more and more in titles now. So, all right. So that is it for the news. We had a pretty good little discussion there, aside from there being a big tangent. We were all like, we'll get through the news in like 6 minutes, no problem. Okay. Anyway, so yes, let us move ahead to the main topic of tonight, that being Konosuba, God's blessing on this wonderful world. I always love saying that title just like that, God's blessing on this. I want, like, it's so funny because I always have the visions of, like, you know, birds singing and stuff, and it's like the series is nothing like that. All right. So, yes, Konosuba. So this is an isekai series, though it is clearly an isekai series that wishes to parody a number of elements from the whole fantasy genre, the whole isekai genre. It starts off with our main character, Kazuma, who dies by truck-kun, although the funny part is that he thinks he's being heroic and saving this girls from this truck, and like it was some slow moving tractor or something, and he so they just stepped out of the way and he got killed. Again, right, like I said, right away, you know, the series is tongue in cheek and it knows where it's going. And so of course he is given the opportunity for reincarnation, and as is the case in many isekais, he meets a goddess who says, hey, you know, you died in a really pathetic kind of way. And so she offers him that that he can take something with him to this new world he's going to go to, and she has like literally a catalog of items that he can choose from, and for whatever crazy impulse, he's like, I'm gonna take you. And so he does. And the goddess Aqua, you would think having a goddess with you would be useful, but again, this series being aware of what it's doing, it kind of turns that a little bit on its head. I'm not going to say Aqua's not useful. Sometimes she is very useful, but sometimes she's a little bit more of a pain in the butt than she is
she's
useful.
Arguably the most powerful of the group, but her intelligence kind of ruins it all.
Yes, exactly. We will spend many times, I think, tonight talking about the main female characters in this series. Basically, you know what? In this world, it's the whole thing, defeat the demon lord. Although that seems to be such a minor aspect of the story as it goes along, you kind of hard to even remember that it's actually a thing. I mean, it keeps coming up, but it's just, it's whatever. And in any case, so it's about Kazuma adventuring in this world and this party that he gets around him of very broken, fractured, weird, quirky people. And, I mean, it's clearly a comedy. It is, has, for me at least, it's had more than its fair share of laugh out loud moments, and it's had an anime. So tonight we're talking about the first 4 volumes. Well, at least we'll hit on the first 4 volumes. That is what the anime adapted. There is a movie coming out which is all but confirmed that it's adapting volume 5, which is kind of a set standalone story anyway, so that makes sense. So if you've been a fan of the anime, the movie does definitely continue the story forward, which, fingers crossed, will probably mean another season of the anime, I'm thinking, after the movie, but we'll just have to wait and see. So yes, Konosuba, God's blessing on this wonderful world. Gentlemen, so where should we start? Let's start at volume number 1. We'll start right at the very beginning. Kazuma, so you're met with this beautiful blue-haired goddess. Do you take her to the other world with you? Or do you go for the killer magic sword or magic abilities?
Well, Kazuma, he pretty much does it, it seems like, out of spite, because he just
out of
doesn't...
spite.
Yeah, he just does not like the way she treated him, and the way she was just making a joke of his death. And even, it gets to the point where she's talking about his family laughing at his sorry state.
Yeah. That was cold, man. I was like, damn, I felt bad for Kazuma, I'm gonna say.
And so at the beginning, I think Aqua, obviously she comes off as brash and a little unlikable at the start, but then later you get to see her, face off against, well, we'll talk about it later, but the frogs and her sorry state, and then you kind of start to feel bad for Aqua.
I don't know if I ever feel bad for Aqua.
I feel like it's just comeuppance.
Yeah, but yes, I agree. I think really he's kind of like, I'm going to take her down a peg. Yeah. Because you can't think that he thought this is going to be super useful.
What's funny is that she's the first girl who gets introduced, and if this was any other light novel series, you would think she'd be the main heroine. But after reading I've read 6 volumes of the series, but she doesn't really. I don't think it would feel right for them to be in a relationship. They feel a lot more like a brother and sister, yelling at each other constantly and getting on each other's nerves, but always having each other's backs.
Brother, sister hate each other, but yet when it really comes down to it, I guess I'll save your sorry ass. That's kind of their relationship. Yeah, I don't get romance out of it, not even a little bit.
Yeah, there's not many series where the girl character on the cover of Volume 1 is she is most likely not the lead romantic interest. She hasn't even shown any romantic interest through 4 volumes, so and it sounds like going forward. But yeah, there's not many series where you see the lead girl, the most promoted girl, and she's not the love interest, or at least the one we think he might end up with.
Yeah, the rule of first girl was definitely broken with this one.
Yeah.
And I can't remember in which volume, but even Cosmo says, it's like, I just can't see you as the main heroine. It's just like, you just go off to the side somewhere and we'll have the real story.
Yeah.
Half the time he's ready to smack her in the head or beat her with the end of his sword hilt because she's doing something super idiotic.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, that's the whole thing with, like, how, I mean, okay, I'm getting ahead, but I was going to say with Volume 1, the way that Volume 1 ends, it's like, we should be rolling in money, but somebody had to go a little bit overboard. So the goddess Aqua, yes. So I think it's worth noting, and we'll talk about this right now, just because going forward it does play a bigger part, but in this world, Aqua is actually a goddess who is worshipped and revered by a group, the Axis Church. We will talk about them. and of course, there is another goddess who features very prominently, which is the goddess Eris, who we do meet, and she seems to be a little bit more popular as a deity in this world.
I wonder why.
Because she stuffs her bra.
And Cosmo doesn't mind.
Oh boy, okay, yeah, we're really getting ahead of ourselves there. So anyway,
before we move on from the pervy stuff, I gotta make the announcement to all the anime only fans. I hate to break the news to you, but Aqua does in fact wear panties. I'm sorry I had to break it to you.
Yeah, that was a thing, right? Like, well, because the way they always draw it, it's like a tongue in cheek. Again, it's like the animators just had to have some visual fun with that, right? Like, does she? Doesn't she?
Somebody posted on my Twitter like earlier today. They're like, "Oh, me wanting to show my family Konosuba first forgets about what the first episode is, and it's like 9 screenshots of Aqua's butt."
Well, yeah, like right in the color illustrations of Volume 1, it's made very clear that she wears panties.
She wears the very anime-like blue stripe.
Yep. Yes, blue striped panties, absolutely, yes. You kind of got to wonder what went through the animators' heads. They were like, you know what? You know, it'd be funny if we create a whole controversy about whether or not she wears panties. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, there was for the just a quick aside, for the production of the anime, there was a lot of like shenanigans, tomfoolery going around, because even the voice actor of Kazuma, right in the middle, whenever other people were, saying their lines, because they group record sometimes, he just starts sputtering out nonsense that was never in the script as well.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, Justice, have you not watched the anime yet?
You know what? Honestly, I have not. I have not watched the anime yet.
Because there's signs that are like characters will be talking in a conversation and they'll mention Kazuma's name, and then the voice actor will just say in the background, "Hi, Kazuma desu." Like, yeah, I'm Kazuma. For no reason. It's pretty funny.
Okay, all right. You know what? It's one of those ones that I keep saying to myself, I've caught up. Like, I should watch this silly thing, and and it would be fun to watch it, because even just how I pictured it in my head was pretty funny, actually. So,
and like the studio's pretty smart, because they made the show look so derpy, but it makes the scenes like 10 times funnier.
Well, I mean, like, seriously, like the books are, like that. I think that works.
Like, I feel like the comedy would be lessened if they, like, the light novel illustrations are really nice, but I feel like the show wouldn't be as funny if all the characters looked on model like that all the time.
Even with an interview with I think it was the director, even he said that he went up to his animating team and he's like, you know what? You don't have to be on model. Just draw whatever you feel feels appropriate for this scene or whatever. And so that's why sometimes you see him go melty face or derp face. It's like it was all just intentional to help drive the humor.
Huh. Well, that works, right? I mean, like, I have never heard anything bad about the Konosuba anime.
Well, like, when season 2 was airing, it looked even derpier than the first season. And people would screenshot some of the episodes and be like, oh my god, look at this animation, it's terrible. Like, even though a screenshot isn't animation. But, like, it's like how in, like, Disney cartoons, they, the way they animate it, the characters are, like, all stretched and whatever, if you take a screenshot, but if you let it, like, flow fluidly, it looks, like, really well animated. And that's pretty much what Konosuba is. Like, it looks derpy, but, like, the animation in certain scenes are, like, really top-notch.
But, I mean, like, they've used so many of those derpy expressions and stuff as memes. Like, I think in a way it worked to their advantage, because, like, the whole series just screams out meme, right? Like, and I mean, like, that is kind of, like, where I really enjoy Konosuba, is how it throws things on its head, right? Like we were saying, like, Aqua, they throw out the whole first girl rule really fast. and you know, and even though he's with this goddess who is actually worshipped by a church in this world, they spend most of the first volume living in a stable. Right? And having to shovel, like, cow crap to, like, earn a living. Because again, you know, Kazuma is low level. Like, you want to talk about the anti-OP main character. Like,
I love at the beginning when they are doing those little odd jobs, and then Aqua, I think Kazuma says something about defeating the Demon King, and then Aqua's like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that I had a goal to defeat the Demon King so I could go back to being a goddess. Yeah. Like, she got so caught up in what she was doing that she totally forgot, like, her whole role.
They were too busy working and then getting drunk.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was the whole thing, right? She was drinking through their profits, basically. And doing, like, little parlor tricks with water, because that's the whole thing, is she's like the goddess of water, right? And purification and stuff. So she does parlor tricks.
She could be the goddess of drawing. She draws very well, but I don't know. Kazuma doesn't quite believe she's the goddess of water.
I just find it funny how, like, the way they each get skills is, like, they pretty much through working and killing monsters, they get experience points that they can use to upgrade their class and get skills. But for some reason, her useless skills that she spends all of her experience points on cost, like, 5 more experience than, like, anything else that's useful.
Yeah, well, and again, right, like, that's the, and that's to me, like, that's kind of the running gag. I mean, you have Kazuma, who is the main character, who in most isekais would be very powerful, have some super cheat ability. And really, like, for him, to an extent, his cheat ability is that he has an ounce more common sense than a lot of other people, and that he is an ounce more devious minded than other people. like who would think you defeat a demon general by stealing his head? Like, or, you know, like, when he first meets, or when he first learns the whole steal ability, and the first thing he steals is Megumin's panties. Like, I mean, you know, just tells you lots about the character. All right, so you know what? We'll probably end up just talking about the characters and stuff, because, man, like, the actual, and some of the stuff that happens in the books, but
yeah.
So let's move on to the party, because before there's even a point in talking about actual plot points, you got to introduce the other at least two main party members. So first off, we have the paladin, the defender, the wall upon which we can defend. Darkness, which I still, the names are just... I've never understood Darkness's name. I gotta be honest. Like, Aqua, I get it. Megumin, I have no idea what that's all about, but I don't know. Maybe that's because I'm not Japanese, but...
The demon clan is weird, and they have weird names.
That's all they say, right?
Joke.
Like, yeah, but I'm like, even when they're saying their names, I'm like, okay, well, they're kind of weird, but I mean, really, no weirder than any other light novel that I've ever heard, but whatever. So we have Darkness. Now, Darkness is a paladin, and Darkness is incredibly powerful defense-wise, and is just about damn useless in every other way. And why? Why is she good at defense, gentlemen? Why is she good at defense?
Because she's a huge masochist, and it's pretty hot.
Because she likes to get hit. And that sounds horrible. Oh my god, I just said that, and that sounds terrible.
She's just a tad bit like tsundere about it too, because she like doesn't want to admit outright her tendencies.
No, yeah,
but it's clearly obvious to
everybody. Yeah, like that. Like I that's the one thing I love about Kazuma is his reactions to her. Like, just yeah.
Like, I think the most probably the creepiest line that she speaks in the first 4 books is in volume 3 with the whole plot of her getting married or whatever, and like she talks about, they're like, everyone's like, why don't you want to marry this noble lord? Like, he seems like a pretty great guy. And she's like, why would I want to marry a boring guy like that? I want to marry someone who's a complete drunk, who's an asshole. He'll throw his empty beer bottles at my head and say, Darkness, go out on the street and make me some cash. And I think at that point you can tell how much of a crazy person she is.
Yeah, even at that point, Kazuma is like, you can't let her go for her dream guy, Aqua. Like, we've got to stop this.
Yeah. So yes. So and what makes me laugh is, like, she can't even swing a sword properly. Like, she is dedicated so much to just her defense and being able to take a hit. Like, oh man.
And it's like, it's not like she couldn't. Like Kazuma says, you could put a few skill points into two-handed sword use, but nah, she'd rather just get hit.
And you know what the real funny thing is? Is that there's no hand-to-hand skill. So if she dropped the sword and just started punching people, she would totally wreck everybody. But no, she's got this image in her head that she has to be this noble knight while also wanting to, feed her fetishes. But yeah, it's like she's her own worst enemy, and she's always like diverting herself in the just worst possible direction.
Well, and that's kind of like the running gag in this series for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, of course, we then have Megumin, who is like, and again, the joke, right? Uber powerful magic user, like probably could be top tier magic user, but she's completely obsessed with, say it with me, explosion. One spell, drain all your mana in one shot, and yeah. And that's like the running gag. Like, it's, of course, it's taking that whole thing, right? It's taking like a goddess who should be ridiculously OP and makes her like a drunk idiot. You have the paladin who has like, you know, the ability to be top tier paladin warrior who, because of her twisted fetish, is not. And then you have this sorcerer who could be top tier magic user, but because of her obsession with one spell, she's not.
Yeah, she's got some weird quirks too. Like she says, at one point she's like, "Oh yeah, we don't need to go to the bathroom in the Crimson Magic Clan," and then later you find out it's like a total lie.
Oh yeah, everything. She pumps up their whole clan, but I mean and again, right? Like that's weird. And then she ends up becoming, of the three girls, she is probably the more level-headed.
Intelligent.
Yeah, like she has more common sense.
They say their whole clan is supposed to be somewhat intelligent.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. So, like, I wouldn't even say intelligent per se. Like, it's more common sense. Like, she actually kind of can read the room sometimes, whereas Aqua and Darkness, no, not at all. And I think that's one of the things that I find always funny about this series too, is like you have these characters with such a limited ability set, and that's where Kazuma as a character kind of shines, because he is not OP. He has all these like little skills that he's like the jack of all trades kind of thing. And it's mainly him trying to figure out, how do I use my really average skills and use the one good skill that each of these three have that we can actually survive this crap. Like, it's just his ingenuity that seems to kind of get them out of the situation.
Yeah, it's and really kind of funny thing is, whenever you see them, is that there's a kind of like dependency where they want that one person that can let them use their one skill to the fullest ability, because you see them every once in a while, they'll team up with other people and it just, straight doesn't work out. They're all searching for that one kind of average person that can, cover up for what they lack. And that, twistedly enough, happens to be Kazuma.
Well, you know what? That's actually a really good way to look at it. And I mean, we certainly, like, I've read the first 5 volumes, and certainly we kind of see that with Megumin and Kazuma, and like the 5th book, which we won't get into because it's not. But anyway, but yes, you're right. There's lots of evidence for that there's, that they're looking for that place to fit because they can't fit anywhere else. And it's only because Kazuma is kind of twisted and at times desperate and maybe because he kind of lacks the normal sense of this world because he's not from it, that he just kind of makes the best of things.
What's funny is that in Volume 2, the anime skips one of the chapters of Volume 2, and it pretty much is, like, in the anime, in the Succubus episode, like, they introduce 2 other male characters who are kind of chummy with Kazuma, and for anime onlys, they're kind of like, okay, who the hell are these dudes? But in Volume 2, they actually show up as another party, and they see Kazuma all gloomy and stuff, and like they're like, why are you so mad? Like, you have 3 cute, hot girls on your party. It's like, what do you have to be mad about? And he's like, dude, you don't understand my suffering. So they basically make a bet. They make like a bet to like trade parties for like a day or whatever.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
like Kazuma and Dust,
Kazuma
right?
joining their part. Yeah, Kazuma becomes a member of Dust's party, and he actually starts to enjoy himself, and everyone works well together. And then by the end of the day, Dust comes back and he's like, dude, I feel you, man. They're terrible. How could you deal with them? So like,
yeah, and I love when they're out later. Like, I don't know, one of Dust's party members is like, oh, but you're not, sad and lonely like us. You've got all those beautiful women. And then Dust is like, oh no, he's just like us.
Yeah. Well, that's when they're going to the succubus or whatever, right? It's like, what's the dude's name? It's like Keith or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly, right? Dust like, no. Well, it's kind of, that is kind of like, it's almost like that's the function that Dust fulfills, is that one shoulder that Kazuma can cry on, because Dust is like, I've been with them for one day and I feel you, bro. I feel your pain.
Then I love when he's in jail later, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but when he's in jail later with Dust, and I don't know if it was Sana, but somebody asks him, oh, are you friends with this guy? And he's like, no, just an acquaintance.
Yeah.
And they have the lie detector on, and it doesn't go off.
Yeah.
Poor Dust.
Yeah. Poor everybody in this series, really. I mean, they're like that. Like, only in Konosuba could you take so many damaged individuals and actually make the series A, work, and B, be enjoyable. Like, it's just, it's just too funny. Well, I mean, so like volume number 1 obviously introduces our main party. So Kazuma, Darkness, Aqua, and Megumin, these sort of misfits and stuff. And like, yeah, you said like the whole frog hunting thing. Oh my God. I laughed so hard when I first read that. Like, just, so basically Aqua, running to defeat the frog and feel the power of the goddess, and the thing just swallows her like right up to her thighs. And Kazuma has to rescue her. And then if I recall, like, Megumin ends up basically the same way, because she can only cast explosion once, and
you can see Megumin's intelligence, because after Megumin like tries to get him to let her join the party, he like constantly is trying to figure out how to get rid of her. And then they fight the frogs again, and of course they both get swallowed again. So he's like carrying her, since she can't move after she uses her explosion magic, on his back, and she's covered in frog slime, and they're walking through town, and she uses the opportunity to try to pretty much like blackmail Kazuma into letting her stay in the party by like over exaggerating, yelling in the middle of town that he's done extreme disgusting sexual acts to her by like getting her all slimy and stuff, and he has to kind of like just agree to her terms.
Yep. Oh, she's manipulative, there's no doubt about that. So yeah, and I love how, again, like how a lot of stuff in this series is just coincidence, and it's coincidence because of the characters behaving badly. Like, so like the main battle that they have in the first volume with Beldia, the general of the Demon Lord, it's all caused because every day Megumin wants to let off an explosion, and so she and Kazuma leave town, and they find this like castle, and she just explodes it like every day, letting off explosions near this castle, until finally he's like, really, you jerks. And he comes to town and like has not caused any trouble. They didn't even know he was there until they piss him off by exploding near his castle every single day.
And then I love Megumin ends up like stepping up, and she's like, I'm the one who did it. And then she like stands up to him by sending Aqua at him.
Yeah.
and then she's like, she's about to get hit by a spell, and she ducks behind Darkness.
Yeah.
Take the spell, Darkness.
Yeah. You can take it. You'll like it.
I like how in the book they build up like, oh, this spell is like a death curse, and if you do not come to my castle within a week, your comrade's gonna die, and it'll be all your fault. So he disappears, and you see Megumin about to like head to the castle and actually try to fix what she's messed up. And then like it's all like gloomy and everything, only for Aqua to be like, oh yeah, I can cure that. So she cures it in like 2 seconds, and then like 2 weeks, and like a week later, then he shows up again, and he's like, what the hell? How is she still alive?
And that's the thing again, right? Like, all this bad stuff happens, but it gets solved pretty easily. Like, like, and where Aqua just every once in a while, like we said, like she seems like such an idiot and a troublemaker, but like every now and then she's just like, oh yeah, I can fix that. Snaps her fingers, done. Or like even when like how Aqua tries to do something good, she still messes up, like purifying the cemetery at by town, how she's trying to, keep it pure and not have the undead rise and stuff like that, and then no, it just causes more trouble.
Yeah, so that's another side story that the anime skips. It's actually where we're introduced to Wiz.
Yeah. Really? They skipped that? Oh. That's a weird...
Yeah, they took a bunch of, like, character introductions from the books and kind of, like, mixed them up really weird. Like, Union, who we don't meet till the second... Like, we don't meet her technically till Volume 3, which is the second season. But then they threw her in the Season 1 OVA out of nowhere. And then Season 2 started, and they introduced her as if we've never seen her before. So, like, it was, like, really weird.
Huh. That's strange. Well, yeah, because that whole... Because, I mean, Wiz ends up playing, like, even just a pretty big role in, like, I mean, not, it's not like she's a main character, but, I mean, like, she's around for a lot of stuff in the later books.
Sorry, I forget. I watched a little bit of the anime, but they, like... Don't they do a thing where it's, like, this stuff happened? Or do they do that where it's, like, this stuff happened in the background, but we didn't show you that arc? Or is it just Wiz appears on the scene and she's a new character?
No, it says they just go over real quickly, narrated that, hey, this stuff happened in the background. Okay, next scene.
Yeah,
I haven't watched the anime in a while, but like, don't they just introduce her when they go to the magic shop or something?
Yeah, that's whenever she's introduced, and then Cosma does this little aside. It's like, hey, we had this adventure earlier on, and then they show just this really short montage of him and Aqua in the graveyard, and then she sets up the seal, and then she's like trying to kick Wiz and whatever, and then it's back inside her shop, and then they're going on like normal.
Yeah, it's really confusing, I guess, if you're anime only. It's a little confusing because some content has been lost there.
Although I find it funny, though, that they... Well, you know what? I'll at least give them credit that they acknowledged that something actually happened. Mm-hmm. Whereas, most anime would have just had them be like, oh, here's this really cool, like, magic shop. Let's go in here, and boom, you meet Wiz, right? Like, a lot of anime would have just, like, completely not even acknowledged that they had jumped this whole other section.
Well, what's weird with the anime version is, like normal anime usually have, like, 12, 13 episodes, but for some reason Konosuba has 10 per season.
Yeah.
And if they had, like, a normal 12 episodes, like, they probably would have had enough episode space to actually fit this stuff in, like, one episode for the graveyard to meet Wiz, and then one episode for the Let's Trade Parties with Dust side story. Like, so I don't really get how they came up with doing only 10 episodes.
Yeah, I feel like the dust part was one of the, like, better, like, I know it's not that significant, but it was a very fun little arc.
It was one of the funniest parts of
the
second book.
Animated. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and like you said, I mean, it creates this whole character where, Kazuma is like, there's somebody that actually understands Kazuma's pain. Like, it's, it sort of reinforces that whole idea that even people from this world find the behavior of these three difficult.
and it helps reinforce, like, that Kazuma, if he were in any other party, he would be not only useful, but, like, he definitely could defeat, the Demon King, possibly. He's, like, smart enough to come up with plans to be a really successful party leader.
Because I think it's just so weird, because I think the Dust spin-off novels got announced before Konosuba started getting published in English. So like when that got announced, I was like, why is this side character getting his own series? Like he's had like 2 lines of dialogue. But like now that you read the books, it makes a little more sense.
A little bit more sense, yeah. I don't know where Konosuba was publication-wise in Japan when they decided to do the Dust spin-off, because they'd already done the Megumin one.
Yeah, there's also a manga spin-off, and I don't know if it's entirely focused on them, but I know Wiz, and we'll get to him later, but Veneer are on the cover of a manga spin-off, like a totally separate series. I think it's focused on them.
Oh, really? I didn't know. I thought the manga spin-offs were just the manga like versions of the light novels.
They might have those too, but yeah, they have one that's Wiz and Veneer.
Huh.
Yeah, there's a regular Konosuba manga version.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. All right. So we have our adventurers in Volume 1, and of course they end up defeating the Demon Lord General by stealing his head and then having Aqua purify him.
Well, the funny thing is, before they steal the head, she tries to purify him. Yeah. She annihilates his horse. He's on the ground screaming. And Aqua, for whatever reason, doesn't think it's effective.
Yeah.
So it's like, if she fired it like 3 or 4 more times, she's pretty sure she would have gotten him without going through the rest of the trouble they eventually do.
Yeah. We should probably point this out, but the villain is a Dullahan, since we haven't even printed that out yet. Yeah, they didn't actually cut off his head.
No, yeah. It's his head is separate from his body already. Yeah. And then they use it as a soccer ball. The other adventurers. Yeah. It's that kind of series, really. And like Aqua like floods the city and stuff, the town, when she's like, yeah, they cause all sorts of damage, of course, defeating a demon general. And you would think, and again, this is where like I love this series, because any other series would be like, didn't just completely ignore the damage to the town. You beat the demon general, like it's all good, you know, but not Konosuba. Here is your reward of 300 million Eris coins for defeating the demon general. You owe us 340 million for the damages that you did to the town.
And you gotta love Aqua trying to beg Kazuma for the reward, and then he's like, "All right, you can have all the reward and all the debt."
Yeah.
That was perfect.
And like how everybody, when they see the paper, they all just disappear, right? Like the girl at the front desk, it actually goes out of its way to say she handed it to him and then left. And like they're all, and like then Aqua of course tries to escape and fails because no, Kazuma's having none of that.
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention one other character who gets introduced in the first volume. We meet another adventurer who's like Kazuma, got summoned to this world. I think his name is like Mitsurugi.
Yes.
And he was also summoned by Aqua in the past, and he's pretty much who your normal, typical light novel main character would be, where he asked for like a magic sword, and he's like slaying a bunch of like demons and everything. And he pretty much comes back to town only to see Aqua in a cage, because they took on a quest to purify a lake filled with dangerous alligators.
Yeah.
And it pretty much traumatized Aqua. So he sees her in a cage, and he's like trying to figure out what's going on, and like tries to save her, basically being a giant white knight. And like everyone just thinks he's annoying. He's like, "Yo, can I explode him yet?"
Yeah.
So Kazuma, being an unfair trickster, is like, "Okay, we'll have a duel." So, but like before even giving him any time to prepare, he kind of just starts the match and like knocks him out instantly. and steals his sword. And steals his
sword.
and then they go on with their he threatens his two companions that like if they try to mess with him, he'll just steal their panties like he did every other girl in town. And then later in the book, they're at the guild house, and he's like, "Yo, can I get my sword back?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I sold it.
I pawned it."
I pawned it. So like he's kind of like a character who stays in the background most of the time, who's like, this is what the main character could have been like.
Yeah, well, and again, right, like and like you said, it presents him as the stereotypical isekai protagonist, and then he annoys the hell out of everybody. and it's too because he thinks Aqua is a deity, so he's like thinks she's worthy of worship. And of course everybody else is like, dude, she's an idiot. Like so yeah, you gotta love like, and there you go, it's the perfect thing. I find that's the one thing about Kazuma that I always kind of laugh at is like, you know, he at one point he kind of decries his bad reputation, but then he'll turn right around and be like, mess with me, kiss your panties goodbye, you know, like he earns it.
He's definitely a pretty big hypocrite.
Oh,
I would say.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean that's the one thing too. Like this series, like his bad reputation. You're sitting there and you're like, buddy, like unlike a lot of like you read so many isekais where it's like everybody calls the main character a pervert for some reason, right? And it's like it's always because he's done nothing wrong. It was like an accident or something. Whereas Kazuma, it's so intentional, and yet so you can't even be sympathetic to him and be like, yeah, he's not really that bad. It's too bad they all treat him like that. You're just kind of like, buddy, you know, you deserve it. Like you own that. You own that. Like I wish in a way we could talk about Volume 5 because man, there's just at least a couple scenes in there that just had me rolling. But anyway, okay, let's talk about Volume number 2. So of course, yes. So Wiz, of course, is a big character, and Veneer are sort of the two big characters that we get in Volume number 2. Wiz, of course, is a lich we end up discovering, who also happened to at one point be a demon lord general, but she's quit because she always dreamed of owning a magic shop. Like, and of course she has horrible business sense, apparently, we end up finding out. And then of course we have the whole thing with actually no, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's Volume 3.
No, Veneer's Volume 3.
Forget that. That's Volume 3. It's Mobile
Volume
Fortress
2
Destroyer in Volume 2.
Yeah, there you go.
Mobile Fortress Destroyer. Which is another time that we've discovered that there's somebody else from the other world in this world, right? Or should I edit that out, that we don't find out that about him until Volume 5?
No, I think... Don't they go into the... I forget. Did they find the diary inside?
Yeah,
no, I think they find the diary in Volume 3 when they go into the cave. Maybe, I don't remember.
Well, when they go up into the destroyer, they find his diary, and it's written in Japanese, but I don't think they really, as characters, they noticed it yet.
Yeah,
that it's like, hey, he's written in Japanese. He is obviously he's one of the people that Aqua brought over. Like
there's definitely, it's implied, but it becomes more obvious later on. So maybe I'll leave this part in because it's implied. You as the reader kind of get the idea. You're like, hold on. Yeah, Mobile Fortress Destroyer. I can't believe I almost forgot that one because that was, yeah. Again,
well, it's the kind of funny thing about this volume is that it keeps trying to set up the destroyer, but it's like every time it gets brought up, like Kazuma loses interest or something happens, and they go off and do this other quest or whatever little side story they want to do at the time, and then it's like, hey, you remember this thing that we kept trying to bring up. There was quests about it. Megaman was doing an impression of it.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. Hey, it's here to kill you all. Good job for paying attention.
Well, this is where they get their mansion too, right? In this volume, because it's the whole haunted mansion thing, right?
Yeah, in volume 2 is when winter starts to settle in.
Yes.
And like in the very beginning of the book, they take a quest to capture snow sprites or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's the very first instance of Kazuma getting killed, and then that's where you meet Eris.
Eris, yes.
Like,
yeah.
and he meets her and he's like,
And like they had set up that you can't die in this world, because if you die in this world, that's your only chance. You know, that's the rule. And then, well, Aqua says, to heck with that. Bring him back now.
Yeah. She casts resurrection on him.
Yeah, it's like, Kazuma isn't leaving me here. Get him back here.
Yeah. And then the whole thing is like the mansion is haunted, and they have to and that's where we get into the whole graveyard and then the whole okay.
Yeah, like you find out, like I love how in Konosuba, like in normal series, they'd have like a small gag and that would be the end of it. But like this series takes gags that go on for like multiple volumes.
Yes.
So like you find out that the whole graveyard incident in volume 1 with Aqua purifying the whole graveyard caused all the ghouls to then go to the mansion in volume 2, which then they now have to clear out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this one also introduces that cave. I think it's like Keel's Cave or something like that.
Yeah, Keel's Dungeon.
Keel's Dungeon. And at the back of the dungeon, once the whole thing's over, Aqua ends up putting like I forget what they call it, like a barrier type thing that again ends up pushing out, or at least they think it ends up pushing enemies out of the dungeon and into their world. Of course, we'll get to it later with Veneer in volume 3, but yeah.
Yeah, there's this huge snowballing effect with Konosuba that just continues throughout, because see, you got in the first volume, you got this little side story with the graveyard, and so instead of purifying it every week or whatever, make some easy money, Aqua decides to just put a permanent seal on it so that the recently deceased can't go to rest, and so they end up haunting the mansion, which they end up taking in volume 2. And then you got to get the same thing with this dungeon. It's like, okay, they didn't want to deal with this dungeon anymore, so you put up this big seal that clears out the undead. And then, okay, the undead's gone, so now in the next volume, something bigger shows up. He sees it and starts investigating. It's like, what's happened here? And then they got to go back, and then they realize, oh, wait, there's a bigger guy here now.
Yeah.
And so we'll get to that when we discuss volume 2.
Well, and that seems to be like that, and that's kind of, I think, again, like the joke is like half of their bigger quests are them cleaning up the unintended consequences of a previous small quest that they've made into a huge problem because of their quote unquote fix. This is also that one. This volume also got a lot more fan servicey, right? Like between the succubus, this is the one where isn't this the one with him and Darkness in the shower or bath?
Yeah, because he goes to the succubus cafe with the dust.
Yeah.
And like he makes his contract or whatever, and then like he stays up all night and decides because if you fall asleep, I think it doesn't work. So he decides to take a bath to keep himself awake. And I have no clue why Darkness decided to take a bath like in the middle of the night, or how like that happened. But he pretty much interprets that his succubus is taking the form of Darkness, and since she kind of like is a giant masochist and won't just leave, she kind of just plays along. So like he makes her like do like embarrassing things with him.
Yeah. And then that's also the one. It's also the one where like Megumi doesn't want to go to the bathroom alone, so we have like an illustration of her sitting on the toilet and like.
And then Kazuma's like, "Wait, I thought Crimson Magic Clan didn't use the bathroom."
Again, and like, you know, this is the thing. Like, in some ways, I mean, I kind of have to think this author is almost brilliant. Like. Because or must have like one hell of like a series Bible that they keep referring back to, because like little things that one character will say in one volume don't matter for 2 or 3 volumes, and then all of a sudden it's a thing.
even I think it's in volume 2. I think Wiz mentions something about, I only have one member of the Demon Lord, set that I'm close with, and it's like, ding ding, that'll be a character in volume 3.
Yeah.
So like, there's little things like that they'll put them in a previous volume, and you won't really know what they are until the next one.
Yeah, I have to wonder how far ahead Natsume Akatsuki plans these things out.
I do wonder. Again, I don't know if this one was originally a web novel. Because sometimes I think you can kind of plan that stuff out.
I think it
was a web novel.
Yeah, so maybe some of this stuff was already written in the web novel, and now he's putting little references back again. I don't know. But either way, I like it. I like when there's something set up, and then it's like, oh, so that's why they said
that. Well, I mean, it just shows, like, I think that's the one thing about this whole, like, web novel-driven business, right? Like web novels becoming light novels. Like sometimes there's not a lot of change. It's more just, professionally editing it, polishing it. If Natsume Akatsuki is using the fact that they've already worked ahead to then fill in all of this wink, wink, nudge, nudge stuff in the earlier volumes, I love it. Like that is the way you should, to me, if you're going to do a light novel version of a web novel, that's what you should be doing. Because why not? Why not take advantage of the fact that you already know all that stuff, right?
Yeah. And another fun thing with Konosuba is that a couple of characters are actually introduced before they're introduced. I don't want to spoil it, but some characters make appearances before you really think they had. And so
that's very cryptic.
Yes, it is.
Like I'm sitting.
I think I know one of them, but yeah.
I'm sitting here trying to think if. I'm like, I don't know if I know what you're talking about. Honestly. Oh.
Yeah.
I've only read up to volume 4, but I think I know at least one of the characters you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just this really fun thing. Because, I've read ahead to what the fan translations had done before this had even been licensed. So, when it was licensed, I was already up to like volume 11.
Oh, geez, okay.
But, yeah. But it's just really fun just like picking these things out, because I even go back and look at, the anime or the manga version. It's like, oh, yeah, they are introduced really early, but it happened so fast, so nonchalantly that you probably didn't notice it. There's one big one, and then there's a real small. I was like, wow, they were already there? It's like, dang.
Well, I mean, they introduced the, in volume 4, the whole, is it the redhead or the girl?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, she's obviously introduced. Like that's why I was thinking that's not the one you're probably talking about, because I mean, it's clear that she's probably going to play a bigger part in things down the road.
Yeah, she does play a very vital role later, but yeah, that's just kind of a hey, here's a character you'll realize who's important now, or you'll realize who's important later. But then there's also going back as like, hey, this person was actually kind of important beforehand. You just never knew it.
Oh, yeah. Again, right? Like it's that whole playing with back and forth timeline-ish kind of stuff. And yeah, I've got to think like even with it being a web novel, I still think like Akatsuki's got to have some kind of like series Bible that they keep referring back to, because like you said, like yeah,
Yeah, like even just like a throwaway line, like, "Oh yeah, the Crimson Magic Clan doesn't use the toilet,"
Yeah.
and then it's like they bring it up again. It's just like, yeah.
and
I
and
feel like
why would you, right?
Konosuba
Otherwise-
is such a lighthearted series, and each volume is so short, and they have that whole like running gag thing going on that I feel like this series is like when it finally does end, it's the perfect series to just binge through the entire series in one go.
yeah, just binge and then be able to actually like see what it's all about. Yeah, I agree. And but isn't it funny though? Like, I mean, like this series, generally speaking, I mean, every volume is it's like usually a less than 200 pages, in English, the English print versions. So, again, like they're not big books, and yet, isn't it funny that they can have such good character development and plotting? Like, it shows that the author is taking real time and care with the development of the book. It's just, it's kind of funny to me. Again, like I said, to me, if this being a web novel, that's the way you do it, right? Like you make it make more sense. You make it so that things are introduced early as a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the web novel fans, and to the people who are just reading the light novel, it just means 10 volumes from now they'll look back and go, oh my God, that's so smart. So volume, like you said, Kyle, like volume 2 is like so funny because you have this whole like threat of this mobile fortress destroyer hanging over the entire novel, but like we just keep ignoring it, not really worrying about it, and then all of a sudden, it's like 5 kilometers from town. Oops.
And the way they defeat it is pretty the way they defeat the moving fortress is pretty funny because like what they plan on doing is I think they have Megumin and Aqua. They're like gonna fire like a big magic spell on it, but they don't have enough mana. So Wiz offers to transfer Kazuma's mana to them, and like the way they frame it, like Kazuma thinks she's gonna suck it out of him by like giving him like a smooch. So they frame it that way, and instead she just literally drains it out of his body, and it's like extremely painful.
Yeah. And then that's the same thing. He was like, the lips are thin, so that works. And then like Megumin and Aqua are like, yeah, hell no. And he ends up having to like touch their neck or something, and that's how he does it or whatever. Yeah. And of course, in typical Konosuba fashion, they save the town, but do it in a way that causes trouble for the characters, because the whole thing is that the mobile fortress destroyer, of course, its core is going to explode, and so they teleport it away. But they don't know where they're teleporting it away.
And Kazuma, this is his first time that he says, I think this is the first time where he says, I'll take the responsibility for this. And which seemed like kind of a throwaway line. Oh, that's very heroic, And it's like, oh no, that comes back to bite him in the next volume.
Yes. Because we do end up finding out that they kind of blew up a noble's house. Oops.
Luckily, nobody got caught in the blast somehow.
Yes.
Yeah, why was there not even like a maid? Like, what was going on?
I feel like if like Kazuma actually caused people to die, it'd be like a little too dark for this like lighthearted series.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I don't. This series, I wouldn't go there. I don't think. But
I'll say this. First of all, he evacuated. I think it was just a throwaway line, so there was nobody inside the mansion at the time, or they were taking shelter. But there's kind of a really specific reason why it targeted that guy's house, and it really plays into roles later. I think the most recent English released version actually covers this.
Is it because I'm trying to keep it like on the down low, but is it because he has a blah blah magic blah blah item something in somewhere? Is that the reason?
Yeah, that's part of it. Noble is not a good guy. You almost don't feel, sorry. It's like, oh, your house blew up. Oh, but he's, a jackass, and he's really kind of pervy for darkness.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Say no more. Okay.
Well, shoot.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll cover more in Volume 3 when we get there. So.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, basically, we're there, right? Because I mean, Volume number 3 picks up where Kazuma finds himself having to face the music for his "I'll take responsibility."
I think he uses the 8-2 guild when they first like stick up for him, and they're like, it's not his fault, he was the hero. And then this new character that comes in, Sana, the prosecutor, she's like, okay, anybody that sticks up for Kazuma, you may be charged with sedition as well. And they all shut up.
Yeah, right?
They're all like, oh, let's cut him loose.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is also like we get like Union is in this one, right?
Yeah.
So we get to meet another member of the Crimson Magic clan. So yes, a classmate of Megumin's.
She's got like a rivalry with Megumin. I forget what exactly it is, but it's like she took her like lunch money or something.
Yeah, like it sounds.
Yeah,
I think Union has like Stockholm syndrome towards Megumin.
You start to get the idea that Megumin is actually a little bit of a bully.
Yeah,
she doesn't treat some of her quote unquote friends very well. She takes advantage of them. That slyness popping out, and then poor Union.
I think the only reason why Union sees her that way is because Union literally has no friends, and it seems like Megumin's literally the only person who gives her attention. Like even if it is in like a I bully you all the time way, she at least gets attention from her. So like she had to build up this fake rivalry thing.
Well, and I think that and I think too like we get the impression that Union has a bit of an image issue, and that in a way it's her idea is that if she can beat Megumin, it's kind of like a self-affirmation, right? Like that, it'll finally be an accomplishment that she has for some reason.
I don't remember if the book does this, but in the anime in season 2, when they have their little rivalry thing, apparently Megumin has like a book with like all the different competitions they've faced with each other, and she like keeps score of whoever wins. And I think the only thing Union's ever won is that she actually has a larger chest size than Megumin.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing she's won.
Yeah.
Because Megumin cheats all the time.
All the time. And can't even and of course can't even duel magic wise, because the only thing she can use is explosion, which would kill Union. So well, like in this volume, isn't the whole thing where like Megumin basically makes her submit because she's covered in frog slime? And Union's like, no, I don't want that all over me. And Megumin's like, come give your old classmate a hug. Like I said, it is, you're actually right. Like when you think about it, like these characters are like, maybe that's why Kazuma and Megumin kind of get along, is because they are both kind of these sly, somewhat underhanded, bullyish characters. Like they're similar in that way.
And that whole slime scene leads to I think my favorite part of Volume 3, where Kazuma decides to join the League of gender equality along with Tomakamijo, where they're covered in slime, so they want to take a bath, and Megumin's like, "Oh, you're not gonna let me take a bath first? You ever heard of ladies first?" And he's like, "Okay, cut that that feminist bullshit out. Like, why do you have to pull that whole ladies first shit when it only benefits you? Like, I'm a believer in gender equality. If I have to curb stomp a woman, I'll do it." And he just makes you think like
I think
he's
he
such
uses the
jackass.
word drop kick, but
So yeah, I'll drop kick a woman if it means I'll get what I need.
Yeah. 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 And of course, this is the one too where we find out that Darkness is not only, well, like, we know that she's odd in her fetishes, but we actually find out that she is a noble of noble birth, which I love because that just keeps coming back again and again and again in the series too, right? That they keep using that as their get out of jail card because she's rich and famous. I mean, I've only read 5 volumes, and I know that they use it at least 2 or 3 times beyond this book.
They use it like twice in volume 4.
Yeah.
Like, not just twice, but like twice within like 3 pages.
Yeah. And so she has that whole thing, yeah, where, and like you were saying, Kyle, that they have this whole thing where she's to be betrothed to this guy, and they're to have like like a meeting, sort of like a betrothal meeting or whatever, to get to know each other or what have you. And she has Kazuma and Aqua pose as her servants, and they're there to try and ruin the whole meeting. And that's where Kazuma's kind of starts to realize, like, damn, we should not ruin this. Because if we leave Darkness to her own devices, it's going to go really wrong. Really, really, really wrong. And again, like, how the hell... Okay, so it's been a while since I've read Volume 3. Remind me how the hell they end up in a cave after all this? Because, like, we have, like, a court case. Then we have the whole thing where Aqua says she's going to break Kazuma out of jail. And that all goes wrong. And then they have the whole thing with, like, Darkness and her noble birth and trying to ruin her marriage prospects. And then they end up back at the friggin' cave with another demon general. Like,
So what happens, if I recall, Sena comes to them, and at this point she thinks of Kazuma in a little bit of a better light. Not like a fully better light, but she knows he was like the hero of, some of the other battles, so she thinks of him as like a paragon. And so she comes to him asking them to sort of help out with this cave trouble.
Right.
Actually, I think at first she accuses them of potentially setting it up. And they're like, we don't know anything. And then she walks away. She goes away, and they're like, we're not going to help. But she goes away, and then all of a sudden, Kazuma starts talking to Aqua. And she's like, oh, maybe that was my spirit circle or whatever that we put there. Like, so they start to realize, oh crap, this is our fault, and they might link it back to us.
Yeah.
So we've got to get to the cave
and fix
it, so we can wipe that out. Yeah.
Again, like, we've made our own problem. Right. Okay. Yes. And then, of course, they meet the Demon Lord General Veneer, who I like Veneer, actually. He's pretty funny. And they defeat him, quote unquote, only to find out when they go back to town that he now works at Wiz's magic shop. And I love that whole thing where, like, Kazuma's like, you look exactly the same. Everyone's going to know that we didn't actually defeat you. And, like, at this point, they're flush with cash because they got the reward for defeating a Demon Lord General. And he's like, no, I'm totally different. Don't you see? There's a number 2 on my mask. And sure enough, it's a Roman numeral like 2. He's like, I'm a completely different guy.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, and then, like, in Volume 4, he ends up turning into pretty much their comrade because, like, he uses his, like, magic powers to, like, craft things, and Kazuma, being the intelligent member of the group, is like, I could take my real world knowledge and I can come up with all these different products that I can then sell in this world to make lots of cash.
Yeah.
So he pretty much makes a huge partnership with Veneer. Like they make a kotatsu
Kotatsu, yeah.
that makes him like a ton of money. Like I think it makes him like filthy rich.
Yeah, it
to the
does.
point where like he doesn't even want to adventure anymore. He was just like, why should I have to risk my life anymore? I'm rolling in cash.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, yeah. Well, and I mean, when it starts off, he doesn't even want to adventure because he doesn't want to leave the Kotatsu.
You really get to see Kazuma's character really shine through in moments like these. It's like, hey, you want to go on an adventure? Want to have fun? Want to do this? Want to do this? No, I want to stay home. I want to be lazy.
His neat side is showing again.
Yep. And then, of course, so we get into Volume 4. Volume 4, where we finally meet the Axis Church.
We finally leave the starter town.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's the first time that we leave Starter Town. That's right. It's the first time that we actually venture out into the wider world and go to this town of water and hot springs and everything else where the Axis Church is set up. And we find out the Axis Church is just as annoying as Aqua herself, really. Would you like to join the Axis Church?
And then the meme was created.
Which meme?
The one where it's pretty much like the Konosuba version of a Rickroll, where like on a message board you'll just put a link, like a blank link that people click, and like they'll click on it, it'll just be like the like a picture of the Axis Church sign up sheet.
Oh.
You never seen that meme? That meme got really overused when season 2 was airing.
Oh, no, I never ran across it online, but in the novels, you'll see it's like, hey, you want to come to the pastry shop? And I was like, okay, here's the menu, and the menu is Axis Cultist recruitment form.
Yes, they have sign-up sheets.
Yeah.
And they like help some. I don't remember exactly what it was, but like they helped some poor unfortunate soul, and after they helped them, she offered them like recruitment papers.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. Is just like, the Axis Church. I kind of like. I don't want to point things out, but I can see where maybe they were patterned off of some real world individuals, maybe a little bit, but I just, so they are a very interesting lot that all they want to do is try and get people to sign up to join the Axis Church. And of course the joke of it is that their goddess is actually there and none of them think that she's actually Aqua the goddess.
I'm pretty sure even at this point in the story that both Darkness and Megumin still don't believe that she's actually a goddess, and they think she just has like a huge ego.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, you're right. Yep. It's true.
I think the first time she says she's a goddess, Kazuma kind of like, I think Kazuma kind of is like, she just likes to call herself that. Don't worry about it.
Well, because I think the whole thing is like Kazuma doesn't really want her shooting off her mouth that she's a goddess, right? Like,
yeah, they say if she shot off her mouth, and if people did believe her, they'd have a hell of a time getting away from them, and especially getting like to the Demon King's castle.
Yeah,
if they've got all these people swarming them.
Yeah. So like,
of course, that kind of goes out the window, but
well, so you're right. Like Kazuma was trying to keep it on the down low anyway, but by Volume 4, you're right. Darkness and Megumin still don't think that Aqua is a goddess, and you gotta love how, and so their goddess actually is in town, and yet none of them believe it, and then they get angry at her because she's ruined their hot springs. Because Aqua purifies water completely as a sort of innate ability. Like, she just, by going into a bath, causes it to become clean water. Which, when your hot springs, part of the whole idea is like the salt and the silt and everything else. It's not such a good thing. Although, isn't that though, like, now, and then of course they run into another, he's another Demon Lord General, right? The Hans or whatever.
Slime.
Yeah, the guy.
I can't remember his name, but he was the slime demon general. And Kazuma, who thinks, slimes, oh, they're the stupid beginner monster. He can't be all that tough. Is like, no, he touches you, he dissolves you to your bones. It's like,
yeah,
Kazuma, shut up.
Yeah,
back away.
yeah. So yeah, and yeah, so it's Hans, I believe, is his name. Yeah. And of course, it now. Of course, also this is a fan servicey a little bit, this volume, because we have, of course, it's a hot bath, so the hot springs. So we do have like a full color spread at the end of half naked girls and everything else.
I'm pretty sure in the volume, Kazuma goes to the hot spring, and I forget the name. There's some female character who's there who I'm sure is important later on. And he pretty much creeps on her the whole time by, like, trying to get a peek. And she's like, this dude's creepy. I gotta get the hell out of here.
Yes. Yeah, that's she's the redhead, right? Is that, if I recall? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and she has something to do with Hans as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because
I thought it was interesting, and, again, I don't know this character a whole lot yet. But she does, like, warn Kazuma about, what's going to happen with the hot spring. Like, just kind of vaguely, she warns him not to go in the hot springs soon. Like, almost like she was, like, letting him know, like, she cared about whether, he was safe or not. I don't really know why, or if they'll explain that later, but yeah.
I don't even think that it was that, like, I think...
Yeah.
I don't think that she cared, like they were saying, like, it was more like she was creeped out by him. But I think, but I didn't get the impression from her that it was that they were necessarily looking to hurt people. They just wanted to ruin the hot springs because they wanted to ruin the Axis Church because they're annoying as hell.
That's kind of another thing. Like, none of the demon lords that we've met so far, like, none of them, have been, like, insanely malicious. Like, none of them are intentionally doing anything. They're just kind of happening into circumstances where, maybe they were trying to ruin the hot springs because they just don't really like the way the Axis Church is acting. But it's not like they intended to hurt anybody. And then Veneer was, like, taking control of a dungeon, but he hadn't really done anything to anybody. Like,
well, like, even like I said, even in Volume 1, I mean, you go back to Volume 1, Beldia was just, like, living in that castle, just chilling. He hadn't done anything. Nobody even knew he was there.
It kind of makes you think that, like, if they ever do eventually run into the Demon Lord, he'll just be, like, a real nice guy.
That, you know what? That would be so Konosuba, honestly.
There is something where, like, I forget what it was, but I don't know if it was, like, tic-tac-toe or something. Oh, no, it was rock, paper, scissors. And I think, Kazuma plays rock, paper, scissors with Aqua to decide who's going to ride in the back of the carriage or something. And then she's talking with him. I don't know how it gets brought up, but they're like, oh, maybe we could defeat the Demon Lord with your luck. And he's like, what? Do you think I'm going to play rock, paper, scissors with the Demon Lord? So now I'm 100% expecting that the final volume of this series is going to end with Kazuma playing rock, paper, scissors with the Demon Lord.
That, legit, that would be so Konosuba thing to do. Well, and
we kind of just skipped the whole them going on the carriage ride to the city too.
Well, we skipped his death too. So.
Well, I mean, leave some surprises.
It's old hat, Kazuma's death.
Well, I mean, well, yeah, he dies. This is the second time he dies in this volume, isn't it? Yeah. And
The second time he dies in the series, yeah.
Yeah, the second time he's died in the series, he died in Volume 2, and now he dies at the beginning of Volume 4.
Yeah, because that's good.
And, so this is the one where Megumin writes on his body, and so he doesn't know what she did to his body when he gets back, and he's really concerned. And then she's like, "Oh, go take a bath." And then he goes and looks down at his body and sees the arrow pointing with the Excalibur. And then Megumin runs off for a few days, and then, of course, when she comes back, everything's all good because he's got a boatload of money.
Yeah, right? Oh, jeez. And every time he dies, he meets Eris, of course, right? And she really does seem like the prototypical goddess, like the better goddess.
She seems like the actual waifu of the series.
Yeah. Yeah, in some ways, yeah. Like, she seems like the only female character that we've met who doesn't seem really twisted or damaged in some way. Which, maybe that's why she's popular. I don't know. So we finished volume number 4. And then, of course, that's where the anime ends. If you are listening to this podcast, read the books, because apparently the anime skipped over quite a bit, it sounds like, which is too bad, because there's even the stuff that you could say is filler in Konosuba is still entertaining as hell. Like,
should we mention the cliffhanger at the end of Volume 4? Like, I guess you can't really call it a cliffhanger anymore because they showed it in the trailer for the movie. So It looks like they're gonna pull a ReZero and just like adapt the very last scene of book 4 before they get to the next stuff for the movie.
Well, so where did the anime end then?
The anime kind of just end, like they got chased out of town because like they defeated the demon general.
Yeah.
But then like all the Axis Church members pretty much ran them out of town because they like wanted to kill Aqua for ruining their town.
They purified the hot springs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course we end up finding out that the hot springs, she actually made them better.
Mm-hmm. And they kind of almost acknowledge that she could be the goddess.
Yeah. Which I'm sure will come back to bite everybody in the ass later on.
And I don't remember if they did it in the book, but in the anime, like while they were on their little vacation, Union kept trying to show up to the mansion to challenge Megumin, but she didn't know that they were out of town, so like she would just kind of show up and nobody would answer the door for her.
No, that wasn't in the book.
No, I don't remember. I don't remember that from the book. So the anime basically ends with them just being run out of town.
Pretty much.
Okay. So, all right. So, so volume 4, of course, then they do go back home to the mansion, and they're flush with cash, and Union shows up at their doorstep, and the cliffhanger is, Mr. Kazuma, I want to have your children. At the very...
I immediately bought Volume 5, but I haven't read it yet.
And then the last line of the book is, I spat out my drink. I love it. So yes, that's the cliffhanger, is Union declaring that she wants to bear Kazuma's children. Yeah, we won't spoil book 5, especially since, Terrence, you haven't read it, but
No.
But it does get resolved. That cliffhanger gets resolved in very quick and very typical Konosuba fashion later on. So,
I wonder how Kazuma will answer.
I wonder, will he take on the big-chested beauty that seems less damaged than his current teammates? I don't know. Anyway, Well, you know what? We're gonna have to talk about more Konosuba later, because even just Volume 5, like, there's so much stuff just to talk about in Volume 5 that is just so entertaining. Oh my god, I loved Volume 5. I really did. But in any case, we'll end there. I want to have your children. I spat out my drink. Okay. So, gentlemen, do you have any last words you want to say about Konosuba about this before we wrap up for the night?
Aqua's the best girl objectively, and she's not useless. Stop bullying her.
Oh, I should have asked that. Like, who's your best girl? That's what we should ask. So are you saying Aqua's best girl there, Flyz?
Yes.
Okay. Kyle?
That's some words, but I'll let somebody else have that decision. It's Mega Man. It's gotta be Mega Man. You gotta love your little psychopathic jihadist blowing everything up.
You pedo neat.
Terrence, do you have any thoughts?
And believe it or not, I am going with Darkness, and just because I feel like she's been kind of pushed a little more. You know, Volume 3 was a little more of a Darkness focus, and she's kind of taken the lead so far. Of course, I'm only through 4 volumes, so we'll see what happens going forward.
All right, well, I have to side with Kyle with Megumin, and you can call me a pedo neat if you want, but you know what? It's I side with her because she is the one that seems to have the most level-headed of them all, like, because of the 3, because I'm just like, I can't, no, I couldn't even hang out with Aqua. Like, and Darkness stuff that comes out of her mouth, I would be like, okay, I'll be over here.
And you feel like Darkness, maybe she'll go on an adventure and never come back home.
I'd end up having to rescue her, seriously, like, and then you find out, like, she's been getting, like, I'd just be like, no, I can't. Yeah, that's more my thing with, I admit, Darkness is probably the sexiest of the 3, if we're going to go by physical looks, but in terms of the one that's, like, that I could actually hang out with and not want to kill myself, Megumin's probably the top of that list, and even then I'd be like, really? You need to go and explode something again today? Really?
I mean, you can hang out with Aqua. You just have to both be totally drunk.
Or just let her be drunk and then I can just watch the show, I guess. That's probably better.
It's funny how none of us picked any of the normal female characters.
Well, we're sticking to the main 3. I mean, come on, like, as much as there's Wiz and Yun and, you know, a couple of the other, like, Sena and other characters, like really it comes down to those 3. I mean, really, at this point, especially in 4 books, it's all about those 3. Like, yeah. I mean, I just got my notice that my Megumin Figma is on its way to me from the store, so anyway, so yeah. All right, so that will end our discussion on Konosuba for this episode. Our next episode, we have decided, is going to be the saga of Tanya the Evil. Only the first 2 volumes, because each volume of Saga of Tanya the Evil is like 2 light novels, so it's almost like 4 volumes, because those things, you could hurt somebody with those books, like, legit. And I guess because we were talking about it, and apparently the anime only adapted volume 1 and then chunks of volume 2. And there is a movie coming out very shortly for Saga of Tanya the Evil as well, so seems like a good time to take a look at the that series, and I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about for that one. So in any case, that will be our next episode. In the meantime, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me, and thank you, listeners, for listening, and, well, we'll talk to you next time. Till then, bye-bye for now. For show notes and related links, visit lightnovelpodcast.com.